So, since last time, there were many things happening. Actually, the center of attentions globally were in Russia, in what happened last weekend, that mutiny from the Wagner group. Some try to say that was a beginning of a coup. Some others, even during that 24 hours or so, here in the West, they were trying to find a civil war, and I think that was an exaggeration since the beginning. I didn't understand, and I still don't, in the full scale of what happened, what it really is underlying the obvious, but there are some conclusions that are obvious. I mean, from that operation, that what I really think that was a kind of Maskirovka kind of operation, was a sort of misguiding mm, the event to the West, to shuffle the the perception here in the West somehow, but with the idea of making a purge, or I mean, by the President Putin. I think he wanted to, or at least he used this mutiny from Prigozhin to know who was with him, who was loyal with him. And don't forget that Russia is kind of a half military, half policial, and a third, let's say one third policial, or one fourth, let's say one fourth is civil society, one fourth is policial, one fourth is army, one fourth is intelligence services. Let's put, I don't know the real percentage, but there's a huge part of the system which is statal and very tight with the president, with the presidency from Vladimir Putin. So he always had the hand on this. I mean, I was quite surprised of the perception and the media coverage here in Europe. But I was also interrogating myself what would be the real consequences of all this. There was this short spectrum of a civil war, or a dismembered country into pieces, in these pieces of a country without a state, which is a nuclear state still. I mean, with a lot of nuclear weapons, would be a catastrophe, a huge problem, very dangerous to the world, especially for here, for Europe. That is why I was very surprised. Well, surprised I wasn't, but I was shocked with some tweets on Twitter from some intellectuals and important people, or supposedly important politicians here in Europe, um, that were shilling for a civil war in Russia. How irresponsible is this? I mean, there was a very, very. I think the European politicians were kind of. They were. They were not so as much irresponsible as the media. Uh, they they tried to understand, and they didn't say much about what was happening there. But the media was completely. They were starting pushing for problems inside Russia, and this is the problem of this kind of operations. If the state didn't get the control in a short period, let's say in these 24 hours, this is the so-called golden hour of a coup, is in the first 24 hours, and then if it doesn't bring nothing, then they start falling the supports. But if they didn't manage this well, that could gain some momentum. That didn't happen, and actually, there is many things that happen that you then might ask yourself: was this really an signified operation since the beginning between Putin and Prigozhin, and maybe Lukashenko? Because how did the Prigozhin, with those rather very few uh, troops, came into Rostov-on-Don, and the military didn't do nothing? I think that was planned with the military. And then they were already 200 kilometers from the capital, Moscow, without any reaction. I don't know. There is this opinion, this information that Lukashenko has called Prigozhin for 2 or 3 times, and the last time he said, "Look, Russian military will smash you like a mosquito, and nobody will listen to you. This is your last chance," because Lukashenko was trying to convince him to make a deal since the beginning in 2 or 3 in the first one or second call, the phone call. In the third phone call, he said, "Look, think it well, because there is no other chance for you. This is my last appeal on you. They will crush you, and you will not get any second chance from my side, from no one's side, let's say." And then when Prigozhin agreed with the terms that they reach between the three parts, and now the reality is that Prigozhin is in Minsk or in Gomel, I don't know, in Belarus, that is very close to Kiev. And in the aftermath of all this, Putin now knows that he has fully popular support. There was no demonstrations. Life was um, right close, a normal Friday night. So there were many people on the clubs in St. Petersburg and Moscow. Nobody was really um, caring, no much pendant upon what was going on. There was some tanks, some military around on the street for obvious reasons, but the life continued as normally. So there was no riots, no protests, nothing like that. We our politicians here in Europe would like to see. So it, Putin now knows that there is popular support. There is no danger of a coup, or no, there was no defections from the military, or significant. We don't know the details. There were maybe 2 or 3. The secret services and the police and the military, they were looking at everything. That is Russia. If you read the interview by the Bild newspaper here in Germany yesterday with Orban, he said it very clearly. He said, "No, don't fantasize with this. Don't see Russia as with the eyes of an European, thinking that is Europe. No, they are very stable state. Putin has full control, and there was not even significant this chapter of Prigozhin. Independently of it was an scenic fight between Putin and Prigozhin, or was an emotional, because Prigozhin is very emotional and genuine revolt, because he wants more money. He is leader of a mercenary group, and actually he has kind of reason and on how his group was treated by the ministry. So there is this problem between personally between him and Gerasimov, with him and Shoigu. But Gerasimov is the minister of defense. Shoigu is the minister, and Gerasimov is the chief of the military. So there is this is army. I mean, there is a hierarchy, and you cannot do this kind of threats. And this was not the first time, so it's rather a very inconvenient element who sometimes explodes and says things like this, like he said before Bakhmut. But if you remember what he said before Bakhmut, right afterwards, not even a week after, Bakhmut was taken by him and his troops. So he is very important. There is this deal, which originated all this, was the incorporation of his troops in the military, in the regular military, Russian army, from the first July the 1st, so next week, or this weekend. And now the things are different, because I think that Putin has detected that would be not very wise to let it have the full control of Wagner. So now the soldiers and mercenaries will receive from the state, will be paid by the state. So I don't know the details of all how will do they will manage the enterprise, but the enterprise won't disappear. It's one of these is the very recognizable, the best assault troops in the world. And one other thing underlying all this is that imagine in advertisement, of Wagner itself, how much money you have to pay for 1 minute of advertisement on television. And how many minutes they got all around the world, worldwide news that Wagner, Bakhmut, very important guy. He could threaten a whole country like Russia. This is advertisement also for him, for Wagner, for Prigozhin, and the other three elements of Wagner, which some of them are more important than Prigozhin, that they are not so mediatic as him. And by the way, they were all the time with Putin against the coup. So I think that was somehow staged. The original, the claim from Prigozhin that he was attacked by the Russian troops, that is totally staged. I can tell that video is very, very amateur. I am a photographer. I know that it didn't happen, that thing. But the rest, we don't know the details. We might know in the future or not. The thing is that now he himself, Prigozhin, is in Belarusia. Belarusia is there, right 100 kilometers from Kiev. He will bring his troops for sure. And maybe, I mean, the thing is, to take from all this chapter is that Putin now knows, as is free to start a new phase of the operation. I wouldn't say to declare war on Ukraine. I don't know. I don't think it has to reach that level. But now you will be more aggressive, because in their in the Russian doctrine and the hierarchy, military hierarchy, there is many factors. One is now is the Ministry of Defense. The other is the chief military chief, the president, and others. And to make decisions like to attack in these strategic decisions. We need They need some agreement from more than 2 3 parts, which is normally not easy to achieve. So there was this problem in Kherson, and now I think we have to understand that Prigozhin is one of the hardliners. In this war, he would have made different decisions much more aggressively, and so maybe we will see this in in the near future. Let's say till the this week, next week, something will happen. I'm sure coming out of this, because this is what we call this kind of operations. A Maskirovka is an operation with some underlying trick that will emerge sometime soon, that will corroborate uh, the whole operation. The operation is, I think, a misinformation by the Russian state, knowing that the Russian state has had always full control on the situation. There was not this danger to the state. This small group that entered in Rostov-on-Don, I think, with um, the also with some the state itself had opened the doors somehow from from eastern Ukraine to Rostov. I mean, normally that won't be done. I mean, this is Russia. All that the Russians are using right now in the whole Ukrainian war is like 15% of their fully capabilities or military. So the Russians have much more, and they would never allowed a coup in the country. So this was done with the permission of some important figures. Uh, if they did this against the president, they will be purged and they will be fired, and or they will something will happen to them. If don't, it was the president himself who organized all this. But that we don't know for sure, and this is a speculation. More we will know in the next days, next weeks, um, to full understand the, what the main what this operation means. So we will follow this, and we will be here to talk more about it. So stay tuned. See you then.